Dear students, welcome to today's class. In this class, we will talk about abstract data type. So, what is the idea of an abstract data type? The idea is that we separate the two notions. One is specification, the other is implementation. So, we specify what kind of things we are working with and what operations can be performed on it. Suppose we want to work with complex numbers. So we specify what are the operations that are permissible with complex numbers, and we know what those operations will return. Suppose we say addition of two complex numbers, we know that if we give two complex numbers as input, it will give us the sum of the complex number. Or if we are working with polynomials and we specify a polynomial as an abstract data type, the specification will list the sort of operations that we can perform on polynomials. Suppose we have the following operations. We can evaluate a polynomial. We can add two polynomials and get a resulting polynomial. We can multiply two polynomials and get a resulting polynomial. So the specification will specify what are the operations and what those operations will do. The specification does not tell how the operation is going to be performed. The second notion is that of implementation. Implementation will deal with a concrete data structure to support the object, and it will specifically implement the operations. Now, if we are able to separate specification and implementation, what are the benefits? The benefits is that the code is easier to understand. So, the application programmer can just make the calls to the functions or operations and does not have to think about how the data type or the functions are implemented. And because this leads to modular code where data structures or data types can be only accessed via specified interface functions, the code will be more structured and will be easier to understand and make. The second benefit is that the implementation of ADT can be changed without so the implementation of an ADT can be changed without changing the program that uses that ADT. Suppose we are working with a polynomial as an abstract data type, and there is currently an implementation of the polynomial using an array. Now, if the implementation is changed so that the polynomial is now implemented using a linked list or a sorted array, it does not change the way the application programmer calls these functions. So the implementation and use, they are separated out. And there is an interface layer which so there is an interface layer which specifies, so we have we have on the other one hand, we have the implementation which will contain the concrete data types, data structure definitions, and the implementation of operations. On the other side, we have the application programmer. And the interface is through the definition of functions or operations, which are called interface functions. And these operations are defined so that the application programmer knows what they are supposed to do. And the implementation, they actually come up with a concrete implementation. And this implementation can be changed and it will not affect the application program that uses it. Abstract data types, therefore, can be reused in future programs. So if you have implemented certain operations on polynomials and you have used it in your program, tomorrow when there's another program which wants to use polynomials, the same implementation can be used. So we see that there are two parts of an ADT. The one is the public or external part, and the other is the private or internal part. The public part, that is the application programmer view of an ADT, it contains the conceptual picture, that is the user's view of what the object contains and how the object can be manipulated and operated on. So there's a conceptual picture of the object and the conceptual operations, what the user can do with the abstract data type. This is the public or external view, the view to the application program. The second is the private or internal view, which is of interest to the person who is implementing that library. So the internal representation, the private part, consists of the representation, that is how the structure is actually stored, what are the data types or data structures supporting it, and the implementation of the operations, that is the actual code that implements the operation. So therefore, suppose we are working with polynomials, the private part will first consist of a data type definition as a stack, as a as an array or a linked list, and secondly, implementation of the operations. For example, addition operation, multiplication operation, there will be code implementing the operations. This is the private or internal part. The public part does not need actually to understand how it is implemented or what data structure is supported. Now, what are the operations which are available on ADTs? There are, depending on the requirement, you can define different operations for each abstract data type that you define. However, these are some of the categories of standard operations. First of all, in most cases, there is one or more constructor functions. So these constructor functions are to create an instance of the data type. So the constructor function can initialize the data type by creating either an empty instance of the data type or some data containing some data. So these are the construction functions. Then there are adding and removing data, that is the modification functions by which one can modify the data type. For example, one can add new fields, one can remove certain fields, one can modify some fields. So these are the modification functions. And then there are the accessor functions, which do not modify the data type but access certain fields. For example, suppose you have a polynomial ADT and you want to know what is the exponent of the highest exponent of a term in the polynomial. So you want to access some information, or if you want information about how many terms are there in the polynomial. These are accessor functions which give you information about the data type without modifying the data type. And then there are add, remove, and modify, which make changes to the data type. And of course, first there are initialization of construction functions. Sometimes you may also have a destructor function which releases the memory associated with the data. Now let us take an example. Suppose we want to define an abstract data type of a list, and we define a list as an ordered collection of items of some element type. So E may be integer, E may be a student record. So E is a type. E is an element type, and we want to have a list which is an ordered collection of items of type. Now, if we consider the list, let us consider what is the external view and what is the possible internal view. Now, the external view includes the conceptual picture and the set of conceptual operations. So, what is the conceptual picture? The conceptual picture is a list contains an ordered collection of items. Let us say item 0, item 1, item 2, up to item n. This is the conceptual piece. And what are the conceptual operations? You can define certain operations based on your requirement. For example, we have defined here certain operations, add, and this is the specification of the add operation. Add operation will take as parameters a list. List 1 is of type list and item is of type E. And it will add the item E to the list. So the add operation is defined such that list 1 will be modified so that the item is added to list 1. You can also have another version of add. In C, you cannot have two functions with the same name. Therefore, we can call this add1 and we can call this add2. So add2 can be a function which takes a list, an item and a position at the list where the item is to be inserted. So if we say list 1, 5 item, then item must be inserted in position 5 in the list 1, and the specification may also specify that the elements from 6th element onwards, they will be shifted so that this new item is added in the 5th position. So this add2 is a function which adds an item in a given position in the list and shifts the items after from 5th for that position onwards. It shifts those items so that this item is inserted. Then we have specified the function contains. This function contains takes an item and a list, and it will return true if the item occurs in the list, and it will return false. In C, we do not have true false. We use integer 1. If item is present in the list 1, this function will return 1. If item is not present in list 1, this function will return 0. Then we have the function size, which will take the list as input and return the number of elements in the list. So this is an accessor function. These first three are modifier functions. Then we have another function isEmpty, which will return true if the list has 0 elements. If the list has no element, it will return 1. If the list has at least 1 element, it will return 0. Then this is another accessor function get. It returns the element in the position pos in the list 1. So this function will return an element. Remove is a modifier function which will remove the element in the position pos in the list, and it will shift the rest of the elements so that they occupy those positions. Conceptually, now how it is implemented, whether they actually shifted or not shifted, it will depend on the implementation. Now these are some of the functions that we have defined on the list. Now suppose you are tasked with implementing list. Now you can design your own concrete implementation for the list. So you may define list as an array of type E. And in that case, when you say add item, you can decide that the item is added. You can add the item at the end of the list. When you say add2, add an item in position pos, you have to insert the item in that position and sort and move the rest of the items to the right. Contains size. If you have to return size, you must have a structure where you not only have the array, but you must also keep track of the number of elements in the array or number of elements in the list. Then you can check if the number of elements is 0 and is empty. You can get the item in the position pos in the array by using the array index. After you remove the element, you have to shift the rest of the elements to the right of it, one position to the left. You could also implement the list using a linked list. Now, if you implement the list using a linked list, all these operations can be implemented using a linked list. But then you must be careful that these functions do as designed. For example, if you look at the first function which adds an item to the list, you must make sure that when you add the item, the list that is accessible to the application programmer contains that. That is, if we have already seen, if the list gets changed, then the change may not be accessible to the program. If you are putting, for example, if you are inserting an item in the beginning of a linked list, then the head of the list may change. And in this case, as we had seen in the earlier example, we must pass a pointer to the head of the list. Or we can have some other mechanism so that the list element does not change. We could have, so if we have to honor this particular interface function, the person who is writing this application, this concrete implementation, must make sure that the specifications are met. Now, if you are using a linked list, suppose you have to do add to, which is adding an item in position pos in list 1. What should you do? You should start from the beginning of the list and follow the pointers so that you go to the position pos, or rather the one element at the position pos minus 1. And then you can insert this new item after the element at pos minus 1 by manipulating the pointers as we had discussed in the previous class. So you do not need to specifically shift these elements as you would do in a. So all these functions can be implemented using a linked list. They can also be implemented using a. So the implementer will decide how to implement it. It will not affect the view that the application programmer has of this operation. So here we have given some details about the operations, which I have already described. Now we have given some operations: add 1, add 1, this is add 2, contain, size, is empty, get, remove. Of course, these are not exhaustive operations on the list. Depending on your requirements, you can add other operations on the list. So my question to you is, think for a while and let me know what are the other operations that you think would be useful for us. For example, you can add a constructor operation like create, so which will create an empty list. You can define operations involving two lists. You can say that given list 1 and list 2, you can append list 2 at the back of list 1. So you can have a function append list 1, list 2, which will append list 2 at the back of list 1. Like this, you can think of other operations that you require. You draw up the specification and then they can be implemented. Next, let us look at another example. This is an example of a complex number, and these are the operations that we wish to define on complex number: add, which will take two complex numbers as input and return their sum; sub, which will subtract, it will take two complex numbers, C1 and C2, and return a new complex number, which is C1 minus C2. Mul will return the product of two complex numbers. Diff will return the result of dividing C1 by C2. Read will take the input of a complex number from the user and construct a new complex number. As you know, a complex number has two parts, the real part and the imaginary part. It will take the input of the real and imaginary part from the user and construct a complex number. Then print will take a complex number and print it in a desired form. So these are the operations that we have defined on the complex numbers, and we can, for each of these operations, we can write a line specifying what they will do. And then we can have an implementation of these functions. For example, for the implementation, we may have a data type which is a struct CPLX, or which we have the type def to complex, which contains two floating point fields RE and IN. So we can use this structure definition to store a complex number. Of course, this is not the only way to store a complex number. You could use an array with two elements, etc. Now, these are the functions that we have: add, sub, mul, read, and print. And we have, this is actually the interface functions, the function prototypes. Add will take as input two complex numbers A and B and return the sum, return a complex number. Sub will also take two complex numbers, return a complex. Same for mul and div. Read will not take any parameter. Read will prompt the user for the real and imaginary part of the complex number, create a complex number and return it. Print will take a complex number as input and print its fields in a good format. And now you know how to implement these functions. Let's take a third example. This is the example of a set. And these are the operations that we define on a set. Union, we take a union of two sets and create a new set, which is a union of two sets which are taken as parameters. Similarly, intersect, which will perform the intersection of two sets and take two sets as input and return their intersection. Minus, we will take two sets A and B and return a set which contains A minus B. Insert, inserts a new element into the set. Delete, removes an element from the set. Size, returns the number of elements in the set. By the way, I hope you know what is a set. A set is a collection of unique elements. A set is different from a list because a list is an ordered collection of elements. A set is a bag of elements. Set is an unordered collection of unique elements. Now, how will you implement a set? There are various ways in which you can implement a set. You can implement a set using an array. You can implement a set using a linked list. The array or linked list may be kept. Suppose you are working with integers. The array or linked list can be kept in a sorted fashion or in an unsorted fashion. It is your choice. However, you must make sure that whatever data type you have defined, however you are implementing the data type, the functions, these functions, union, intersection, minus, insert, delete, size, does the job as specified. Now, these are one way of specifying these functions, which are given by these function prototypes. So, the function union takes as input two sets A and B and returns a pointer to a set which is a union of these sets. Function intersect takes two sets A and B, returns a pointer to the set to the intersection of this. Similarly, minus returns a pointer to a set which contains the elements of A minus those elements which are in B. Now, here we have specified that these functions return a pointer to the set, and the person who is implementing these functions must make sure that these specifications are satisfied. Then we have this function insert, which takes a set and an element and incorporates the element in the set. And again, the person who you are implementing this function insert, you must make sure that the set actually gets modified so that the calling function, the calling function has access to the new modifiers. Delete will remove x from the set, and this function returns void, which means The calling program must have access to the multiplexer. And the size is an accessor function which returns the size, that is the number of elements. Now, having looked at these examples, let us try to understand what is the difference between data type and data structure. So we have seen that a data structure gives the specifics of the how the data is organized, whether it is an array, whether it is a linked list, what type of structure, what are the fields. With an abstract data type, we do not specify the exact data structure. When we specify an abstract data type, for example, a list, a set, or a complex number, we specify the conceptual picture and the conceptual operations. We do not specify how the data structure is, data type is, how the data type is included. For example, if you have a vector abstract data type, we will not specify whether it is going to be stored in an array or a list. Rather, we will say what a vector contains, what are the functions, we will define what are the functions that are required and what are the specifications of the function. It is the duty of the person who is implementing it to come up with the correct information. The application programmer just has the conceptual view, not the specific data structure. Okay. With this, we will end this part of the lecture. The next part we will talk about stats and groups. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please email to us.